They're like, I want high performing team, high productivity. And I'm like, okay, well, is the environment you're creating going to give you that output?
I'm Doug.
I'm Una.
That was Erin Corr Miller.
And this is our podcast,
Amazing Teams. Join us as we have conversations with remarkable people who are building amazing teams. Erin Corr Miller, welcome to the Amazing Teams podcast.
Thank you.
I want to tell our listeners how special this is for me because you and I worked together many, many years ago, and you were my happiness coach. And I want to thank you because you inspire me to want to work on software that helps people feel more appreciated, but ultimately makes them happier. So thank you for that.
That is so kind. Are you going to make me all teary-eyed? But yeah, I was curious. I was like, I need to ask Doug, like, why did he like me as a coach? Like, what did I leave in his pathway other than like focusing on joy? I think that's always a good thing.
Doug, I'm curious about the answer. We can intercept.
Thanks, Una.
Yeah. What did you like?
I think it was the ability to talk to you, right? I think people find it easy to talk to you. And I don't know if that has to do with your training or what, but I felt comfortable and safe. And I think that's really important for people. Now, I want to give you a proper introduction because that's what we do on the Amazing Teams podcast. And so I grabbed just a little bit here from LinkedIn. Erin Corr Miller is a human resources and people development professional with a passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. With her empathetic leadership style and keen understanding of power of coaching, Erin has been a driving force implementing successful DEI strategies within the organizations she has worked with. She is also certified as an Agile Coach and certified in Crucial Conversations, which is so interesting to me. What is this Crucial Conversations thing?
Yeah, so Crucial Conversations is the framework that you can use in order to have conversations when there are high stakes or high emotions. It's again, it's just a framework that you can go through, and it gives you a really healthy way to approach those difficult conversations. And what I like about it is it really starts with yourself and getting your head straight before you go into that conversation. One thing that I think some companies run into is they cultivate a really great culture. They want everyone to have fun. They want everyone to be nice. And then what happens is when a conflict arises, no one is sure how to approach it.
Let's talk about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, so I'm an accidental people person. I accidentally fell into human resources, and I'm so glad I did. I started my career in sales, and then during my time at the Fool, where Doug and I worked together, I was moved over to the people team, and I really credit them with taking a chance on me and allowing me to find my calling. I've always loved people. I've always cared deeply and just always been curious and fascinated about why do humans do what they do. And so getting into this work in the corporate structure, it's really helped me kind of peel back the layers of, okay, what does make a company great? What makes an amazing team? Why does this individual contributor have such a better experience than this person? And so I think leading people teams over the last 7 years, I've been able to really have the 10,000 foot view and vision and help organizations really understand how to create those types of cultures.
All these years of experience, I'm curious, what does an amazing team feel like to you?
Yeah, so an amazing team, I would say one, there's definitely a high level of trust. And, when I say trust, it can't just be, I trust them to watch my dog, but I trust them to make the right decision. I trust them with this project. And I think you get to trust by really understanding your teammates' strengths. And really, when a project is headed in that direction and someone's strength is going to be the best position for that, getting out of their way and kind of giving them the autonomy and allowing them to do what they need to do, I think is a high level of trust. And, working with different managers over the years, it's the managers who they might care a lot, but if they're in there micromanaging and just, I need to check on this person, there are so many times that I'm like, back away, let them make some mistakes, because you want them to be tapping into their potential, and they can't do that if you have all these safety rails in place.
Erin, in preparation for this conversation, I Googled your name and I saw what comes up. And I found this talk, I think it was called The Power of Brazen Trust. And you were talking about your son climbing a Harley and how you almost kind of jumped and leapt to save him from potentially falling. But then you realized, I should probably trust, right? Your husband was trusting him to climb. So, we all say trust is great. But how do we give people trust, right? It's easier said than done. So I'm curious, you experienced it in that moment, and probably we all have. How does one let go?
Again, it starts with self-management. There's so many people that you want to read all the books, you want to understand, how do I do this? And usually it's, figure it out for the other person. But really it starts with you, and you have to look at, okay, what are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? Do I talk to people so I can understand my blind spots? And then really leaning into those areas. And, your weaknesses are always going to be your weaknesses. You might work on them a little bit, see if you can improve. But what I found is if you partner with people where, you're weak and they're strong, it creates a great partnership, a great team. But again, building trust, allowing, people to have that bandwidth of trust. It starts with yourself. It starts with, okay, what areas can I let go of? And then also, there's a beautiful thing that happens when you give someone that autonomy that they need, and they prove that they can do it without you. The best run teams are the ones that are performing, whether their boss is overlooking their work and overlooking, how they're acting around each other. And when they're not, if that team is running along the same, whether the boss is in the room or not, that is an amazing team. And it starts with that self-management of, okay, I'm actually going to sit back and wait and see what happens, versus I don't trust them enough, so I'm going to jump in before I can even see what their potential is.
I love the whole Harley story.
And my son was 3 when I gave that talk, and now he's 10, so he's not getting a Harley. We'll start there.
What happened at the end? Did he fall off the Harley, or did he earn trust?
He earned trust. He was good to go, and he was just happy and proud of himself. So that was kind of the reward of actually stepping back and letting him do his thing.
I love stories.
Yeah.
And I think our listeners love stories too. So how about a good Motley Fool story?
Oh my gosh, a good Motley Fool story? Oh man, there's so many, and half of them I probably can't even tell on the air. So let's just leave it at that. A good Motley Fool story. Oh my gosh. I mean, I was scrolling through my pictures the other day, and talking about like building teams and doing fun stuff. There's a book I think it's Dan Heath, who wrote the book Moments. And it's where you create moments for people and creating memories. And I think that's one thing that, during my time at the Motley Fool, they were really good at creating those moments. And so, speaking of my son, I'm scrolling through my pictures the other day with him, and there is a Cher impersonator holding Ben, who's like 6 months old. And that was a moment at the Fool, because I remember our marketing team was doing something, and we were, there's a big Twitter thread happening, and someone who tweeted back to us was Cher. And I was on the people team at that time. And I remember, I think it was like 2 days before the company meeting, it was like, we have to find a Cher impersonator. And I'm like, where do we work? What are we doing? But then that happened, and it created a moment, and it was fun. And it's something to talk about. It has nothing to do with work. But it created a fond memory of, who am I around? What were we doing?
I remember that moment, and I remember thinking to myself, what is this crazy place? Where am I working? This is
right.
This is surreal.
One thing that, Doug, you said makes you think, not makes what you believe Erin's the best coach you ever had, is that you can talk to her. So I'm curious, like, Erin, how do you do that? Is this something you can teach people? Like, in a sense of, you helped Doug trust you, right? And it sounds like you do that with teams and companies that you lead as well. How does one do that?
I would say number one, it's it's got to be authentic. You know when someone is being real with you, and you know when they're not. And so, I always come from a place of authenticity. I think the second thing is you have to be invested in that individual. You have to get to know them, and you have to show that you truly care. When I work with managers on one-on-ones and building relationships, and what does that look like? If, in the beginning of the relationship, if you're not sitting down with that individual and asking them, what do you love about working here? What do you not love about working here? What do you wish you had on your resume? And what can we figure out on how to get you there? Who's your partner? Do you have kids? Do you have plants? Do you have pets? And really getting to know the whole person, I think, is really important. And especially in a remote environment that so many of us have been over the last couple of years, it's easy to jump on Slack or book a meeting and jump right into work. And if you don't take the time to build up that social capital with the people that you work with, it's going to come back to bite you, because the moment you reach that conflict, now you're arguing with, Doug, who lives across the country. Not, oh, I know Doug, he listens to this music, he just went to this music festival, his pet's name is X, he's got 2 kids. It brings a level of empathy that's really, really important. And again, it has to start with authenticity. And I think another way that I make it safe for people to talk to me is I also share. I share a lot about myself, and I think when you lead and you're comfortable saying, okay, here's some things that I want you to know about me, it really opens the door for the individual to then share about themselves. And so leading by example is also really important. But again, without authenticity, it's not going to work.
I love that you said that about sharing or starting first, because a lot of people, we all sometimes want things to be better. Let's say our culture or our team is not amazing. We want it to be amazing, and we want people to trust us. But we might not be the ones trusting someone else. So being the first one saying, I'm going to lend a hand. This is a more tactical question, but what do you think about at which level of trust should one start when they're starting to work with other people? Let's say you join a team. Should you assume trust from the start, like full on? Should you be a little bit hesitant? Like what's a good way to approach, let's say, joining a team, or someone else joins a team, and where do you start?
Yeah, I love this question, because I've definitely had this discussion with multiple people, because I think I'm on one end of the spectrum, and I've definitely talked to people on the other end of the spectrum. I am someone that I will give you trust until you prove me wrong. I come in assuming that we are on the same team, that you're going to trust me to do the work that I need to do. I'm going to trust that you're going to do the work that you need to do to the best of our abilities. And then I've definitely talked to the person that's like, no, you earn trust, you don't get trust, trust and verify. So, there's definitely both ends of the spectrums. And, just speaking for myself, my experience has been when I go in and lead with trust, and I trust them, and, I start from that place, relationships go a lot smoother and a lot better. I think when you come in and you're, it doesn't mean you can't be a little skeptical. I think that's okay and healthy in some regard. But if you come in very standoffish, you're, not approachable, you're really holding all your cards, you kind of get what you give. And so again, if you're not willing to open the door, if you're not willing to share and kind of show that value that you have, you're going to be less likely to get that from someone else. What do you think, Una? How do you approach trust? Are you
the same way you do? The same way you do. And then sometimes you get burned, right? Or maybe it's too strong. You might get disappointed, right? What you expect, you don't get necessarily. But I think it's personally a better way to live. I can sleep better at night. I don't want to think about how is this person gonna fail me today. I always think about how is this person gonna live up to whatever we talked about. And I think especially in companies and teams, there's already a natural qualifying factor. Like we got hired into the same company. We're clearly interested in the same things. So there's more qualification. You know that this person has gone through some vetting, and you have a lot more in common versus trusting a stranger on the street, right? That just approached you. So I think it's even in companies like that, I think it's even more important to start with trust and then work your way backwards if that trust has failed.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And I think, again, taking time to build up that social capital with people is really important. It used to be easy. We'd pass each other in the hallway or we'd go play bocce ball on a Tuesday. And again, now that we're in a remote setting, if your organization isn't, taking specific time to create those moments and make sure that there's that connection, you can also do it on your own. That's one thing that when I come into organizations, my title may say VP of people or, culture is part of it. I may oversee it. I might be the project manager, but every single person that works at the organization owns culture. And you make a decision every morning when you log into work. You're either going to contribute positively or you're going to contribute negatively. And that's a you thing, and you have to manage yourself. And I think, again, in a remote workforce, you have to be conscious about, okay, how was my day? Did I ask, my 8 a.m. meeting, how are you doing? How have the kids been? What do you have coming up this weekend? Like taking even just 2 or 3 minutes at the beginning of every meeting just to check in with someone can go a long way.
Now, I know you're working with a lot of executives right now. What topics are you guys talking about?
A couple of topics that I'm working with executives right now. One, again, just building culture, especially in the technology industry right now. Over the last year, we've seen so many layoffs and turnover and a lot of people switching careers. And, so one thing that I'm working with executives on is, again, building the cohesion that needs to happen on a team, really making sure that you are taking time out, not only to build skill set and ensure performance management, productivity, but to have some of the ancillary stuff happening on your team. And, it doesn't mean trivia or, a face-to-face like wine tasting, but it's genuine connection. It's, from Agile coaching, one of the exercises that I love doing is a journey line. And it's basically you take a piece of paper, you draw a straight line, and then you go through different bouts of your life, kind of the ups and downs. And I've facilitated a few executive offsites where I've done that with very experienced executives. And I have yet to have one of those where someone is not teary-eyed or, has shared something that they're like, I can't believe I'm sharing this with you, but I really wanted to. And when you have those moments of authentic sharing and really being true about who you are, it builds such a connection. So that is one, just team connection and team cohesion. I think the other one is, building in just engagement. Everyone is so, I think everyone's reaching burnout. Everyone's staring at a computer screen for 12 hours a day. If you're a fresh college student and you're working for the first time remotely and you live by yourself, you have to think about, how is this individual showing up to work? What do their connections look like? And I think managers have a hard job these days because it's not just, is this person getting their work done? We as managers now have to think about the whole human. Is their mental state okay? Are they getting out at lunch to take a walk so that they can get some fresh air? Are they missing deadlines? Is there something going on in their personal life? And, so a lot of executives, I'm just helping them see the value in getting to know the whole person. And then, going back to what Hey Taco does, getting constructive feedback. It's very, okay, here are the things you're doing wrong. Here are the things we need to see. But what a lot of managers still aren't doing is giving positive recognition to their people. And I've seen a few different ratios out there, but one thing that I love is the 5-to-2 ratio. So for every 5 positive bits of feedback that you give someone, then you give them 1 or 2 pieces of constructive feedback. And again, if you put, I call it making deposits in the bank. If you've made 20 deposits to that individual or that teammate, when it comes time to say, hey, I see something that I think we should work on, they're going to be way more open to that feedback versus if you've only been giving them negative feedback over the last couple of weeks. They're going to be like, great, this guy has something else I'm doing wrong.
Erin, have you read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
I actually think it might be on my shelf over there. Yeah.
But in one of the habits, I forgot which one, probably seek to understand or see and then be understood. He talks about the what is it called? The emotional bank account.
Emotional bank account. Yeah.
Right. Which reminds me a lot of what you just said. You have to, if you're going to withdraw all the time, there's nothing to withdraw anymore because you haven't made any deposits, right? Whether it's in terms of trying to connect or ask questions or sharing appreciation, no bank account can be withdrawn forever, right? You have to make deposits into it.
Exactly. That's true. And, going back to that emotional bank account, when it comes to having an amazing team, one topic that we've talked about is psychological safety. And, I think that was a really hot topic maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I think it's coming back into play. But with psychological safety, the other thing that's important that's kind of under that umbrella is allowing an environment of continuous learning and the ability to make mistakes. One of the leaders that I supported a while ago at the Fool again, one thing that he did with everyone that reported to him, and I think I talk about this in my Brazen Trust talk, but he always, told people that reported to him, your first mistake is on me. And that is so powerful. Again, managers, executives, they're like, I want high performing team, high productivity. And I'm like, okay, well, is the environment you're creating going to give you that output? Because if you're not creating an environment where someone can make mistakes or they truly feel unleashed or they've got the autonomy to do what they need to do, they're never going to innovate at the level that they can because you're going to have guardrails in the way. And so again, continuous learning, having a team that's like, you know what, you went for that shot, you missed, but let's keep going. That is an amazing team. You've got that built into kind of the makeup of who you are.
Doug, how many mistakes do I have on you?
I stopped counting.
First 10, Una.
Yeah.
I remember you did say that in that talk, and I thought that was very interesting because we talk about these concepts of like psychological safety and even inclusion and equity, but like, what does that mean? And what you mentioned about this executive is this is what it means in practice, right? To build that environment, you tell people, make a mistake and it's okay, right? You're not going to get your head chopped off and you're not going to get fired. But how do you turn things that we value into behaviors we can actually practice and do every single day?
Right. Absolutely. And I think, great leaders or leaders of great teams are natural synergists. They bring people together. And I think, that's something that I mean, my mom says I've never met a stranger, and it's like anywhere I go, I'm talking to whoever. And I am a connector at heart. And it's because I really see, okay, this person is really good at this thing over here, and this person wants to get there. Let me put them together. And, one of the individuals that I've worked with in the past who now we're dear friends, when I hired her to be on my team, we see the world, very similarly. We have similar core values, but how we approach things are very different. And I'm like, okay, let me give you the 10,000-foot view. And she's like, okay, but you forgot the first 10 steps of this thing. Like, she's very detail oriented and I'm very out here. And it was a great partnership. But I had to go outside of my comfort zone to look at, okay, because with managers, it's a natural bias that you want to hire. Okay, this person talks like me, looks like me, sounds like me, does things like me. But as a manager, if you continue to hire that profile, your team is not going to be at the level that it needs to be. You have to hire for where are your weaknesses, where are the gaps in the team. And that is really where you get that diversity of what you need in a team when you look at it through that lens.
One thing that you mentioned a few minutes ago, you said you have to show or prove the value to the executives you were working with in that particular offsite about the importance of looking at the whole employee, the whole human being, versus just are they producing work results. Why do people in leadership roles not see the value?
Why do they not see the value? That's a great question. I think leaders do see the value. I think they just need constant reminders Because at the executive level, you're reporting to a board, you're looking at metrics, you're looking at, okay, what's the output. And, my job as, head of people is to remind them, you don't get that output, you don't reach those metrics without all of these humans. And that's what they are. Until the robots take over, we still have to interact. If we need to understand the humans. And again, as a leader, you have to lead by example. And, there's been a ton of studies done over the last 5 years. The overbearing boss, the dictatorship, that used to be old management, where it was like, show up, do your job, and go home. People do not want to work for that leader anymore. And I remember, funny story, when I became the director of people development, I remember talking to my dad on the phone and telling him what I did. And I said, I do happiness check-ins and I get employee engagement data. And he was like, how is that a job? He's like, people just need to go to work. And I was like, nope, it's a whole job now. We want to make sure that people are happy in their environment and that we're making changes that we need to make. And so again, as a people strategist, I am looking at, okay, what are the goals of the business? What are the metrics that need to be hit? And then how do we put people programs in place in order to ensure some of those are being hit? And again, it's really important that you are focusing on the wellness and the whole person, because when, again, another story, my mom, I've grown up with her telling me the story, everyone carries around a bag of rocks. You can't always see it. You don't know how big it is. And so I, especially when I'm in conflict with someone that I work with, I'm trying to picture, okay, how big is their bag of rocks? I don't know what's in there. I'm not sure what they're carrying. And, maybe they have a terrible morning at home and they've come into work with some of that energy. Me coming at them is probably not going to make things better. So why don't I take a step back and ask, hey, how are you doing? You seemed a little off this morning. Is everything okay? Just, again, those tiny little moments is how you build trust and empathy and authentic relationships, because you truly see, who is this person in front of me versus, I need to get this metric from you today.
I love that so much. Is there a risk with ensuring people are happy?
Yeah. So one thing that I've done over the last couple of years is change the name of a happiness check-in to a well-being check-in. And one of the reasons is because I think, happiness is an inside job. And I think, there are some individuals that, are just naturally happy. And there's some individuals who are, super happy in their personal life and at home. And work is just work. And so, you might get one version outside of work, one version inside of work. And so I think, rather than focusing on, are we making our employees happy? I think you should look at, do our employees feel valued? Do our employees feel like they're making an impact? Are we recognizing our employees and, really focusing on that aspect versus, are they happy? Because I've also seen people who kill it at work, make a bunch of money, have a great job, and they're like, yeah, it's my job. And I'm like, but shouldn't you be the happiest person on the planet because of this? And it's like, no, I find my happiness in all these other areas. And so I, again, I think it's focusing on value, impact, recognition.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yes. In our first episode with Daniel Todd, he had a little quote in there. He said, what was it? If you can't be happy here, you can't be happy anywhere. Right. So to your point about it's an internal job for sure. Love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I've definitely run into that. And especially I think the technology industry has spoiled a bunch of people, especially in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, where it was like we were running adult daycares. Like we had ice cream stands and like share and all these different things. And it's like, no, work is, not a jungle gym at 3 p.m. every day, but work is building meaningful connection, developing your skill set, getting really good at something that you can be proud of, and doing it with people that you respect and trust.
I have a friend who recently transitioned into the tech space. She used to work in corporate communications for a bank. And I'm from Croatia, so that's a more traditional workplace than the US. So she calls me, she said, it's a big IT firm, 3,000 developers all over the world. She said, Una, these people really care about their free bananas in the office. You can do whatever you want, but don't take away the free banana in the office. She's like, they make so much money, but what's up with the free banana? She's like, I don't understand this. But it was a daycare for pretty much adults, right? With all the free stuff and whatnot. She was mind blown.
Oh yeah, no, that's true. I remember when we took soda out of the offices and everyone was like, I can't have my Diet Coke. And I'm like, walk a block and pay 75 cents. We're paying you 6 figures. Go get a soda. Yes. Well, and I think, again, with where organizations are right now, there are a lot of people who used to subscribe to, culture being ping pong tables and pizza parties. And if you're still trying to operate your organization with that mentality, it's just not going to work. And, we saw that with remote work. Everyone is spread out. And now it's like, okay, how do we go back to building those authentic connections? And how do we go back to ensuring teams are engaged and productive? And again, back to Hey Taco, one of the best ways that you can ensure a team is amazing is letting everyone in the organization have the ability to recognize each other at different levels on different teams, and allowing that positivity to radiate. Because if you don't double down on recognition and highlighting people when they're doing something great, the negativity always spreads 2 times faster than the positivity. And so you have to work twice as hard. And, even with the science of our brain, our prehistoric brains, we are programmed to be negative. We are programmed to look for the risk. We're programmed to look for the fear. And so I think, just having training and thinking about positivity and optimism and bringing that into your world, you do have to do it intentionally because you have a natural bias to be negative.
This is where maybe the natural bias to not trust comes in as well, whether as a manager or joining a new company, right? Not trust until you prove me wrong versus the opposite.
Yeah. Well, the other aspect of trust, and I've had a few conversations with managers over the years regarding this, someone will come to me and say, oh, this person did this thing, and I think they did it because they don't like me or they're out to get me. And as humans, 90% of our thoughts in our head are about us. And I'm like, I guarantee you have not been a speck in their world today. Like, as humans, we are walking around, we have so many thoughts going on in our own head. It takes a lot to go out and say, okay, I'm going to go do this, thing to this person. So again, back to building trust, assume positive intent. And I'd rather, be disappointed a couple of times versus, go into the world not trusting anyone, in the workplace.
What effect do you think it has on you as a contributor to a team, right? You're leading people, you're trying to build the trust. But let's say you're an employee just like everyone else, you're a member of the team. When you manage yourself and approach with high trust, how does that affect you and your day-to-day?
Yeah, well, one, anytime you can lead with integrity and be true to yourself, I think it does something for your self-esteem and just how you carry yourself. And again, I think part of the reason why I was moved from sales over into the people team was I had already established myself as an employee. People knew who I was. People had connections with me. People had relationships with me. Before I was on the people team, people were coming to me like, hey, this thing just happened with a coworker. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, did you try this? Or did you look at it this way? And so I'd already kind of established this is kind of who I am. And so, the other thing that happens when you lead with trust, when you have that level of authenticity, you become a leader. It may not be in your title, but people are going to start to see, oh, they're getting through a lot more conflicts than I am, or they handled that way healthier than I did this thing the other day. Let me talk to them about how they're doing it. And I think when that type of behavior is seen and encouraged and recognized, more people are going to adopt that behavior. The same way, if you have a high performing jerk who treats everyone terribly but gets promoted and paid well, if that's recognized and rewarded, that is what your culture is going to become.
So true. So I love tactical stuff.
Oh boy.
What would you say is one thing leaders could be doing right now that will help them build a better team?
One thing, I'm a data-driven decision maker, and, whether your organization is 10 people, 400 people, or 10,000 people, gather the data. And you can do that through employee engagement surveys. You can do it through small focus groups. You can do it with one-on-ones. And, for a lot of leaders, if I run an engagement survey and we have to go through the results, so many of them are like, oh, it shouldn't be like this, or they almost start to take it personally. And I'm like, no, this is our benchmark. This is just where are we? And then as a leader, get that benchmark and then set goals with one or two areas of, for this specific area in the organization, I want to have it improved by 12 months from now. And then start to think about, okay, what are the things that we can be putting into place? And so, always get that benchmark. Or if you have been doing employee engagement surveys, look at where you were a year ago and make sure that you're on track. Again, not being afraid to hear the feedback, I think, is really important for leaders. I think sometimes it's safer just to look the other way and keep on having the monthly meeting saying hit your numbers, but that is not going to, retain the workforce that you need. I think the other thing that leaders can be doing, again, is just continually learning, be curious. I have a group of people I call my board of directors, and they're a personal board of directors. I have a couple of different mentors, and one of the mentors on my board of directors is a 24-year-old professional. And I reach out to her because, I can't believe I'm 20 years older than her, but I reach out to her and I'm like, okay, here's this thing happening. This is the lens that I'm looking through. What am I missing? And I think if more leaders were open to help me understand where I don't see it, or help me understand what I'm missing, I think things would be a lot better. I think too many times it's like, I'm at the top, you need to listen to me, and you just need to do it. And again, that approach has been proven. People don't want to work for those leaders or those companies anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Was that tactical enough?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Another tactical question for you. Employee engagement is a big phrase, and we hear it all the time when we talk to our customers. What are some things to think about in employee engagement that most people forget to think about? Is there a particular metric that's important that most people overlook, or a question leaders should be asking that they forget to ask?
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget to ask individual contributors about how their managers are doing. I'm a big fan of upward feedback. A lot of times you may ask the grand questions, how was the organization? Do you feel aligned with the core values? But the middle management layer is one of the most critical areas of the organization. And they also have the hardest job. They report to executives, so they not only have to funnel information up, but then they're getting strategy from those executives, which they then have to communicate it down to the people on the front lines. And so in organizations, I really like to focus on that middle management layer and understand, where their challenges, how are they doing? Have they gotten the foundational management training that they need? Because a lot of times you're promoted to manager and it's like, hey, congratulations. Now you have 4 people reporting to you. And if you're a smaller company, you don't have management training. So you've got, these people dedicated who want to do a good job, who just don't have the tools in their tool chest. So again, focusing on that middle management layer, I think, is important. And again, the management training that I put together, it's foundational and there's multiple steps, but I try to, iterate along the way based on feedback. So if one area of training, we want managers to get better at goal setting and discussing career pathing. Well, I'm going to ask in 6 to 12 months, the people that report to those managers, have we improved in this area? Do you have a better understanding of the direction you can head in your career? Have you been getting the development that you think you needed? So, checking in on that data that you're gathering.
We have currently 4 core values at Hey Taco, considering adding a 5th, and that 5th one being fun. What is your thought around having fun in the workplace, and how does that impact morale? How does that impact happiness?
I think it's really important. It's like you want to take your job serious, but not yourself. The organizations where I've had the most fun was where I was able to do that. And I think, again, I spent 10 years at the Fool, and, I think there's probably one other company that I can say where I really felt like, okay, I can do my job. I can have these tough conversations. I can do management training and, discuss all these HR topics that I need to. And I can go joke around, or I can go do something fun, or I can dress up on Halloween or whatever holiday if needed that I want to. And I think fun is really important. I'm a huge football fan. I love NFL, and, I've listened to all these different podcasts, and one thing that I have been loving seeing is just the way people joke around, and, kind of the behind the scenes, or you watch on TikTok how some of the players are mic'd up and just how they talk to each other. And I think it's huge for morale. I think it's huge for connection. And I think as a leader, during my time at Precision Hawk, I had a team of about 8 people. That was one thing that we were hiring so many people in such a small amount of time, and we had the most fun that we could. And I look back at those days, and it was crazy, it was stressful, but it was so fun. And it was because we had that ability to joke with each other. And every time we hired someone, we'd play All I Do Is Win, and people would walk by the people office like, why are you guys partying at 2:00 in the afternoon? I'm like, we just hired another person. So you have to build that in. And I think, for me, in some organizations where it's so serious, I am not a good fit, because I joke around. I'm like, wow, I don't know that I'm a good in this area. But I think it's really important. I think you've got to have that, but you can only have it if the leaders are showing up in that way. You can't have a super stiff executive team and then the next layer, no way they're going to feel comfortable joking around and being that way. So it's got to start from the top.
That's a great point. I agree. That's really important.
Yeah. I'm a little disappointed you don't have your taco outfit on today, Doug. It takes a very secure, confident man to rock the taco suit. I've seen you do it. I think you can do it again.
I appreciate your support.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Erin, what do you think is, you're a people leader and have been working with executives. And one thing you said, which really resonated with me, was the culture is everyone's role, right? It's not just you as the chief people officer going to come in and save the culture, right? Yeah. So what is the role of a people person at all levels of the company in helping build that culture? How can they help influence it, measure it, change? Like, what do they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So as head of people, you do want to build meaningful relationships with executives, managers, frontline employees. Again, depending on the scale of your organization, that's going to look differently for each different size. But one, again, showing up in your most authentic way, showing people that you care, taking time to listen to people, actively listen, hear feedback, and then act on that feedback is really important. And I think with my sales background and then moving into the people work, a lot of what I do is not like an HR policy that I hand you and say, this is what you need to do. So much of my work is conversations and leading by influence and saying, hey, we're gonna do this thing over here on this team, and you, leader over here, I just want you to watch. I want you to see where we start and where we end up. And then once they see that, okay, Erin's done it over here, let's do it over here on my team. A lot of it is influence and showing the value and the impact of what happens when you care for your people, when you value your people. And, part of valuing and caring for your people is also holding them accountable and doing it in a really compassionate and kind way. If you've got someone who's reporting to you and in your mind, you're like, this person is not cutting it, it's not going well. If you're not having those direct conversations with that individual, you are failing them, just as much as they are failing you. And so again, I think with, being a people leader, you also have to show other leaders, how do you approach those situations with kindness and compassion? And, again, with so many people being laid off and having to change roles, if someone comes to me and says, hey, I need to cut this person from my team, I want to talk with them about, have we exhausted all these other things before we have to get to the point of letting that individual go? And a lot of that is through influence. It's not, do as you're told because I'm the head of people. It's, I want your buy-in. I want you to understand the why behind this, so that as these situations come up, you already know, how is our approach going to look?
That's great. So as you know, with Hey Taco, we're all about influencing gratitude, right? And every day you have 5 tacos that you can give to someone or multiple people. Who are you giving your tacos to?
Oh my gosh, the pressure. I wrote this down. So I would give 1 taco to, I'm thinking I'm going to give it, so I get 5. I might do 1 person per taco. Is that okay?
Yeah.
However I want to do it. All right.
I encourage
one
that.
Taco. Okay, good. 1 taco is definitely going to Janelle Peterson. She is the person that I hired as our director of HR at Precision Hawk. We worked together for a while. She is now the head of people for a startup out of California. I'm giving her a taco because she has been an amazing team member. She has made it really safe for me to talk with her, especially about things that are difficult. And she has also been just my ride or die cheerleader in my corner, like picking me up when I'm down. She is amazing. The other taco I'm going to give to my friend Khadija Canaday. Similarly, she has been someone that has been such a cheerleader in my life and just a really good support, really good friend of mine. And the last 3 tacos, I don't know if this is allowed, but I want to give them to my mom. Aww. Because I know, right, Mom?
Of course it's allowed.
Is it allowed? She's retired, but yes, we'll send them to her anyway. But no, I would say my mom because, I really think just the way I grew up, I had 3 sisters. There were 4 of us. I have 2 kids and I'm barely surviving. So the fact that my mom raised 4 humans already is so impressive. But I want to give those tacos to my mom because one thing that she did, if you see and meet the 4 of us core girls, we are all so different. And I attribute this to my mom's ability to see each of us as individuals and really nurture our strengths and let us be exactly who we are. And I think all 4 of us have become just wonderful humans because she instilled that early on. We weren't trying to fit into a box. She wasn't telling us, oh, you need to take this path. We were running and she was running behind us like, you go, like, I'm going to see you way through. So the last 3 go to Mom.
That's so sweet.
Mic drop. I don't even know what else to ask. That was so good. It makes me happy. I don't even know any of the people you mentioned, but it just makes me excited for them and for you.
That feels so good. Well, Erin, thank you for joining us on the Amazing Teams podcast. Where can people find you on the internet?
Yes, they can find me on LinkedIn, Erin Corr Miller. I would love to connect. I'm always happy to talk to people just about management, recognition, people strategy, coaching, all the things.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, then please share this podcast with others. and we would love to know how we did. You can tell us by going to amazingteams.com/feedback.